With that, I'm pleased to introduce today's presenters, Brian Filip and Sam Berry. Brian is the Prescribed Fire Coordinator with New Mexico Forestry Division. He has over 10 years of fire experience helping our federal partners, as well as the private citizens of New Mexico, understand the benefits of prescribed fire on large landscape scale or smaller projects. Brian has achieved recognition from internal as well as external cooperators for the implementation of the Certified Burn Manager program. He looks forward to expanding the program and ensuring all individuals interested in this program are properly informed. Sam, the Southwest Associate Director with the Forest Stewards Guild, works on facilitating the return of good fire, building fire-resilient communities, and supporting workforce development in the landscapes of New Mexico and beyond. Sam holds a Master's of Natural Resources from the University of Idaho and has worked on various wildland and prescribed fire crews, engines, and wildfire use modules in several states. His work in general seeks to build connections and do work on the ground that leads to better relationships between wildland fires, the natural world, and communities. We're pleased to have Brian and Sam with us today, and with that, I'll turn it over to them.
Thank you, Rachel, for the introduction. I appreciate it. With that, again, my name is Brian Filip, Prescribed Fire Coordinator, New Mexico Forestry Division, and it's a pleasure to be with you all. And without further ado, I'll go ahead and share my screen, and we'll talk about the Certified Burn Manager program. Just for everyone, can everyone see my screen?
Looks great, Brian.
Thank you, Rachel. Certified Burn Manager program, I just wanted to give you all a little bit of a history about behind it and how we are where we are today. Initially, it was introduced as House Bill 57 in the 21 legislative session. But before that, we had a great working group from NGOs, governmental, private citizens, who all have the same mindset of how important it is to put fire back on the ground in the natural environment to reduce the risk of catastrophic fire, as well as improve the ecosystem. This was introduced by Matthew McQueen, Gail Armstrong, Peter Worth, as well as Pat Wood. Throughout the legislative session, all committee hearings, very positive or overwhelmingly support, as well as within the House and the Senate. And it was signed into law on March 18th of 21. And here we are in 23, and I know a lot of you are wondering, why are we just hearing about this now? But unfortunately, we had one of the largest fire seasons in New Mexico history, where it required an all-hands-on-deck approach. So this was kind of tabled for instance, but now that I've been in this position, I've been able to pick up those roots and get this program moving forward. What is the Prescribed Fire Act and what does it do? Well, it establishes a negligence standard for any prescribed burning on private land. It also creates a training program in coordination with the New Mexico State University Extension Services for landowners and contractors to build the skills to conduct prescribed burns safely. It provides an incentive for landowners and contractors to get that training, so they're only liable for actual damages instead of the double damages which was established by law in New Mexico in 1882. It also creates a certification program through the Forest Division and creates a model prescribed burning permit for counties and municipalities to use if they choose to issue permits. The prescribed burning rule, which has been published, is that the objective is to create a prescribed burn management certification program for private lands in New Mexico to include pile burning, which does not include agricultural burns, such as acequias, ditches, fields. When I say that, for alfalfa, things of that nature. Broadcast burning, And also with this requirement, the creation of the proficiency workbook. In order to become certified, you must go through a few steps here listed on the screen here. You may attend the S110, which is a basic wildland fire orientation. It's roughly about 15 minutes, or another substitute orientation approved by the division. If you find something out there you think that is appropriate, please go ahead and send it to us for approval as well. Also, we have a 9-element training, which is an online public-facing free online service, self-paced, and you complete the elements with a score of 70% or better. And then you'll be issued a proficiency workbook. This proficiency workbook is a list of tasks that must be completed in a satisfactory manner and approved by a division employee or an individual with at least the NWCG prescribed burn boss type 3 qualification. After that proficiency workbook has been completed, you would then go to our website and apply for application for certification. And I will show you what that form looks like here shortly. Another type of burn that we have would be the broadcast burn requirements. These are going to be a little more stringent. These are going to be larger scale, most likely. And in order to achieve this, you would need to at least have the NWCG S190, the NWCG S290. Also, a burn plan writing course, which is in draft form right now, approved by the division, and successful completion of the 9-element training, as well as successful completion of the proficiency workbook. If you are already certified in another state, we do have a method of reciprocity. The division may conduct a review of another state's certified prescribed burn manager program and post a list of states that the division grants reciprocity for pile burn manager certification, which will be on our division website. The committee will determine eligibility based on the following, which will be the successful completion of coursework, field experience, proficiency requirements, and again, is the state listed on the division's website. We talked about our committee, and I'll get to a slide about that goes more in depth of exactly what the committee's responsibilities are. Right now, we're going to focus more on what our district responsibilities are. So if you are in Rio Arriba County, you would contact our Chama district with our district forester, Joe Carrillo. If you're out of Socorro, then you would contact our district forester there, James Angelo, etc. But our district responsibilities is requested to initiate the proficiency workbook made verbally or written from the landowner, contractor, or agent to the respective forestry division districts, as the examples I've given. District forester, fire management officer, and or project foresters must email the prescribed fire coordinator to ensure all prereqs have been satisfied before initiating the proficiency workbook. After that, the prescribed fire coordinator will email the district forester, fire management officer, and project forester with an approval or letter of explanation. If it does not meet the mark, additional information is needed, the prescribed fire coordinator will reach out to that individual and request that information. If it is approved, that district forester in that respective district may proceed to initiate the proficiency task book. And I was mentioning our committee responsibilities. Our committee consists of 4 members. One which is appointed, these are all appointed by our state forester, Laura McCarthy. And myself is the representative for the New Mexico Forestry Division. Chris Romo is the representative from the New Mexico Prescribed Fire Council. Sam Berry is our non-governmental organizational representative. and Blanca Cepedis, Dr. Blanca Cepedis, as an ad hoc member who is out of our Highland University in Las Vegas. The committee's responsibility is to review these applications and provide oversight of the development and updating of training modules, refresher courses, and recertification and crosswalk training and experiences. Members of the committee will consist of one division employee, which is myself, appointed by the state forester, one governmental organization representative and non-government organization representative, and one prescribed fire council member representative, which I've listed earlier. This is a term of 2 years, and the state forester will appoint these members and has the authority to remove committee members prior to the end of their term or replace the division employee appointed to the committee at the state forester's sole discretion. Before we move on to Canvas, I had mentioned the application of certification. And Rachel, can you see this application of certification here?
I can, Brian.
Okay, great, thank you. This is what your form will look like. You would just enter your basic information, address, street address, email address, and here on block 8, you'll determine what certification you're seeking, whether it be the pile burn manager or the broadcast burn manager. As you select for presentation purposes, I will select the pile burn manager. At this point, you will need to make a determination if you're applying by waiver, reciprocity, new certification, or waiver of the proficiency requirement. For demonstration purposes, I will select new certification, and it would ask you, have you completed a 9-element training course as you see here? You just make your selection of yes or no. After that is completed, you would upload the documentation required to show that you have completed the proficiency workbook, as well as proof of completion of the 9-element training. And after that, all you would do was hit submit. At that point, our committee members will receive your application. We will organize a meeting to review the application and make a timely decision of whether this is certified or if we need more additional information and such forth. As we were talking about our Canvas-based platform, this is what it would look like. My credentials are in, as I'm an administrator of this, but for a new individual seeking certification and wanting to participate in this curriculum of the 9-element training, you would go to this website, which is on our New Mexico Forestry Division website as well, and you would click here, need a new Canvas account. Then you would select, I am a student. It asks for a join code, and that is provided on our website as well as I have it here in the next slide I will share with you. You would enter the join code. There are 2 different join codes. One is for the pile burn certification, and one is for the broadcast certification. You enter your full name, create a username, a password, and then go through the I'm not a robot process, which could be cumbersome at times. After that, you would be enrolled and able to start proceeding with the curriculum. As you log in, as I'm enrolled in both, you would go to whichever one you enrolled in, you will select it. And then here are all the elements that will be required. We have an introduction, we have our legal requirements, safety, burn plan, public relations, etc. For our presentation, I've selected our fire behavior module. And this is, well, put me on introduction. Well, let me go to fire weather. And then this is where you would start your coursework. You would start from 1. It doesn't have to be in any order. You could start from 8 to 1 to whatever you feel you would like to. And then you just go through the curriculum and follow the prompts as necessary. And back to those joint codes. Just as I was demonstrating, just click on the Need a Canvas account, click here, it's free. And those are the joint codes for pile burn as well for broadcast burn. And this is how we all get started in this process. It's just visiting our website at the link provided above, and also determine which certification you're seeking or wanting to seek, whether it's broadcast or pile burning. Select the link, establish an account with Canvas, select the I'm a student. Again, there's join codes. Those are very important. Sometimes you may hit a different digit and it won't let you in. So please make sure you're looking at those carefully. And then you will be enrolled. Oh, I'm sorry. And just to touch again, I know we touched on reciprocity, but it's important for us to understand is what state are you certified in? Is it on the approved list, which is posted on our website, which will be posted on our website? Have you completed the 9 element training elements of legal requirements, smoke management, as well as permitting? Just follow the prompts on the application, which I demonstrated, and upload the appropriate criteria and submit your application. And again, the Certified Burn Manager Certification Committee will review your application timely and get with you with the determination. And that's all I have on the program, and I appreciate you all listening and tuning in. Thank you.
Alrighty, so we'll go ahead and open it up to questions for Brian for just a moment before we move over and have Sam present on All Hands, All Lands. So I know that that was a pretty rapid fire explanation of the act that made this program possible, or rather required this program to be implemented, as well as how you go through the training. So if anybody has some questions, go ahead and raise your hand to unmute yourself, or just go ahead and pop those questions into the chat. I'll just ask one quick question about the Prescribed Burn Act, because it feels like you went over that pretty quickly, Brian. I've dropped a couple of one-pagers here in the chat that people can go back to just to get an idea of what that act really included. But can you give us just a brief overview?
I guess I am not understanding your question there, Rachel. I apologize.
Of the Prescribed Burn Act that was passed by the legislature in, was it 21?
It was in 21. I wasn't really involved in that part of it as I was coming in. Things were in beta testing and such forth. I was just understanding just the benefits for the citizens and why individuals should go this avenue to become a certified burn manager and to treat acres. I understand the training aspect is huge. The educational aspect was huge from this act as well as the ecological benefits and also as reducing the risk of catastrophic wildfire.
Great. And I know that you touched a little bit on who this training is really best suited for, but can you go a little more into depth into why people should take this training, what the benefits are?
Absolutely. Yeah, this training the audience for private citizens of New Mexico. Contractors are their agent. Sometimes we have individuals managing other people's land, but mainly for our private citizens, whether you own a parcel, a few of them, and it's important because of the negligence standard as well for all citizens, but also because of that double damages clause. So I guess what I'd say with the certification, that peace of mind of if you do and are proven negligent and not doing the correct things, you won't be liable for actual damages instead of that double damages clause. So I think that this program is very, very beneficial for all citizens.
Yeah, so just to boil that down a little bit, if you take the training, if you were to burn and the burn got out of hand, assuming that you have the certification, you would not be liable for as much money or other resources that you're on the hook for. Yeah, if something went wrong.
That would be an accurate statement.
Alrighty, well, I'll give folks a few minutes to think of other questions that they might have for you. And in the meantime, I'll go ahead and ask Sam Berry to come on and talk to us a little bit about the All Hands, All Lands program.
Thank you, Rachel.
Thank you so much, Brian.
All right, everybody. Okay. So my name's Sam Berry with the Forest Stewards Guild. And one of the things I do is coordinate this all hands, all lands burn team. Not necessarily the catchiest name. We usually shorten it to all haul. But anyway, so I'm going to talk about that program. If I can get this to work. All right. So the main idea here behind all hands, all lands burn team is to increase the capacity for prescribed fire on all lands, thus the name. And we do that in a bunch of different ways, which is what I'm going to talk about. And then, a big part of this is adapting to changing needs. So we know the need for a lot of us understand the need for prescribed fire in New Mexico for like reducing risk of the catastrophic wildfires, like Brian mentioned, building forest resilience. There's lots of studies and info on that. But then knowing that those needs are changing as we have like climate change, and then we're responding to things like the Hermit's Peak, Calf Canyon fire, those kind of things. So the way that we do this is a multi-pronged thing with coordination, planning in the like big P planning sense of burn plans, but then also, logistics and that sort of thing. And then through the actual operations, so putting fire on the ground operationally, all the training that needs to happen before and during those things. And then, of course, we think a lot about standards and liability. That kind of ties back to Brian's presentation. And then a big part of it is agreements and partnerships. So working together, building those relationships, but then also making sure we have the piece of paper with the right signatures on it that allows us to do these things together. Okay, so as a pretty small nonprofit here in Santa Fe, we work on this by stacking of initiatives. So I won't spend a lot of time on this slide, but this is just showing all these different kind of polygons that people have put on the map where they're interested in doing this work in sort of a prioritized way. And then of course those start to build up over time. And so there's funding attached to these things and momentum there. And so we work on areas where there's sort of the most things going on. But then as a nonprofit too, we kind of try to look for where things aren't getting covered or, this work isn't happening and try to make that happen too. Just, it doesn't have to be right inside these polygons. Okay, so as far as operations and planning, so all hands, all lands, the burn team lead burn operations through all the different phases. That's the planning, the permitting, the prep work that needs to happen, the actual operations of putting fire on the ground. And when we do that, usually, we do it as like a collaborative team. So the guild, the Forest Stewards Guild, we're a nonprofit, but we're going to put together a team of folks. Might be other nonprofits, it might be tribes, it might be counties, and everyone will take on a different role. But a lot of times, the few of us here in my office, Rachel's a big part of this too, we'll work on a lot of the logistics and the meetings and getting all the right pieces in place. And then of course, the planning is a big piece of that, getting the burn plans together. The permitting can be challenging at times since every county in New Mexico has a different process. And then of course, getting all the people there at the same time to actually put fire in the ground. So we'll lead private land pile burning. I'm a certified burn boss for that, not yet in the state system, but hopefully soon. And then we'll coordinate for broadcast burning. And we don't have any burn bosses in-house at the guild, so we use those collaborative partnerships to find those folks and bring them in. And then we'll work on burn planning, either in-house or contract that out. And then another big piece that All Hands All Lands works on is supporting partner burns. So we supply firefighters to partners through call when needed employees and other partnerships we have with folks. And then we also have standing crews. And then we do a lot of outreach and coordination. After Hermit's Peak, the Forest Service really stepped up their outreach and coordination for prescribed burns. We were kind of doing that all along, not to throw anybody under the bus, but we as the guild, we really focus on the education and the outreach. And so we were doing quite a bit of that. And then after Hermit's Peak, we kind of doubled it. So every time we have a burn, we have a public meeting, we have email lists, we're putting flyers up, we're really trying to get the word out so that if people are concerned, they can talk to us and maybe we can when people are open to it, provide some more information about the benefit of this work and also about the risks, right? Because that's what a lot of people are concerned about. So we try to be really open and transparent in that coordination. And then there's some numbers on this slide. You see a really big acres number. A lot of those are big Forest Service burns, but I'm really proud of some of the small burns we've done. On this slide, there's some good pictures. That one in the snow is a burn we did at Glorietta Camps. And you can see a mix of people in yellow shirts and a mix of people in regular jackets. And so this is a mix of private people who work for the camps and then firefighters that we brought in to get this burn done. So just kind of one example of how that works. Okay, so then partnerships and coordination. So partnerships, relationships, and underlying agreements are really key to All Hands, All Lands. And so this just lists a bunch of our different partners, folks that we've worked with. And a big part of my work is just making sure that the agreements are in place so we have permission to come burn. And then a big part of that I've been trying to work on is making sure in those agreements it allows like the Forest Service, or maybe they're not the best example, but the BLM maybe to come off of BLM land and help on private lands, which is a challenging thing to do, but something that I work on or try to work on. And then there's quite a few of the Pueblos listed here. They've been big partners for us. They have fire crews, that are there, and they do other work throughout the season. And then, through some of the relationships we've built up, we can help or not help, but move those folks around to burns on other locations, either private lands or other federal lands. And we've worked with youth corps. We have our own youth corps. We work with county and volunteer fire departments, Tauski Valley, the Park Service, State Land Office is a big partner. So just trying to make sure that we're really hitting the all lands, part of all hands, all lands. Okay, and then of course, with wildfire, training is really important. And there's NWCG training, which I probably should have spelled out, but that stands for National Wildfire Coordinating Group. And that's kind of the federal standard for firefighters. So we work, the Forest Stewards, we work in that world a little bit, or quite a bit. And we provide those trainings. And that includes sort of the basic training. That's what's going on in this picture. And then some of the higher level in the field trainings. And then we do a lot of workforce development. So we have youth crews, which we'll talk about in a second. And then I give this presentation often in other places. So I'm always making sure to put on the New Mexico State certifications, which is something we're excited about incorporating into this to make burning on private lands a little simpler and easier. The federal NWCG system is really good and very thorough, but doesn't necessarily is difficult to apply outside of some of those jurisdictions, although we've been doing that for a while. And then I just want to mention our Forest Stewards Youth Corps. So we have a youth corps in the fall, and we have one in the summer that we've been doing for almost 20 years. It's sort of a more broad natural resource program, but then in the fall we specifically have a fire program. And we do the training and the hiring, and then they're sort of based. One's with Jemez Pueblo, one's at the Mountain Air Ranger District, and one's at the Espanola Forest Service Ranger District. And so those folks are available for prescribed fire on their Forest Service and Jemez host units, but then also we kind of pull them around to help out on other burns. And this is a really cool program. A lot of these folks have gone on to fire jobs. A lot of them haven't, but it's still great that they have that training and experience. And this picture in the top here, this is from a burn we just did a couple of months ago at Cottonwood Gulch in the Zunies. So this is a private land burn, and this is one of our youth corps members working on that burn. And now this guy here, Javi, has moved on to our winter crew and is out burning piles today on the Carson National Forest. Okay. And then just want to mention this. This is something we started last year. We've been doing a lot of work with the tribes, like I mentioned earlier. So we started up this tribal wildfire working group just to give a chance for folks to coordinate and talk to each other, sort of work towards solutions to these issues that affect the tribes there. And, it's a complicated issue enough, and then it becomes even more complicated when you're on your ancestral land and you're trying to work with BIA and the Forest Service and a bunch of other NGOs, and everyone's knocking on your door. So this is just an opportunity for folks to, on that tribal side, to get together and figure out what's not working and how we can fix it, and then figure out what is working and how we can replicate that. And then this is my joke, no prescribed fire presentation is complete without a challenges slide. So here it is. Navigating insurance is a huge issue for an NGO or anyone outside of that federal sphere. And that hopefully that certification system through the state might help with this eventually. And then, getting the agencies to buy in to the differences of our program. They can't just get on dispatch and have them order up a couple engines. It takes a little more work, but a lot of the partners, and this is what I was talking about with the partnerships and relationships, as we've showed up, this program is 4 or 5 years old. As we continue to show up, they're starting to buy in more and more to getting these local resources out there. Funding, of course, is always a challenge. Collaborative burning is always interesting, a mix of partners and high risk situations. And then, capacity, it's just hard to fill all the needs all the time, but there is more capacity than it seems. And that's sort of what All Hands is trying to do, is just find all the available capacity for prescribed burning there is and get those folks out there so we're not missing burn days, which is important as it gets hotter and drier in New Mexico and those burn days are becoming more limited. Okay, and then future directions. So sustaining and adding partnerships. We've had pretty good success getting agreements in place. And we're always looking to add those. That's always a long process. And then another interesting thing that I'm interested in is prescribed burn associations, utilizing the state burn certification. So this is specifically usually for private land. And this model has been working really well. I think it started kind of in the plains with ranchers that were burning their agricultural fields, just helping each other out. And it's now moved to has been successful in California, where neighbors are kind of helping neighbors do these small burns right next to people's homes. So really, where you get the most bang for the buck out of a prescribed burn is like, in that zone right around your house, you remove the fuels there. And so these associations work where just neighbors help neighbors and come together to do a burn. So this is something that I'm looking to see how we might kickstart that in New Mexico. Of course, everything is more challenging now post Hermit's Peak to get people bought into this kind of stuff. And then right along with that, doing more private burning, growing and sustaining our call when needed roster, and then navigating the state certifications and the federal ones. So that's my quick overview. I'm happy to take any questions or expand on anything if folks have anything.
All right, so while we're waiting for folks to pop any questions that they might have into the chat, I had a couple of quick questions tying these two presentations together. The first one, you mentioned that we're excited about the New Mexico state certifications. Just wondering if you can elaborate on how those certifications might fit in with All Hands, All Lands.
Sure. So like I said, All Hands, All Lands in the first slide, we're ready to adapt to change, and it's very flexible. So and the Forest Service and BLM, those folks are pretty successful at getting prescribed burns on their lands. You don't see a lot of burning on private land. So the state certification might be a way to sort of bring a little bit more legitimacy to folks that are trying to burn on private lands without having to do the very onerous processes that the federal governments go through, which are really some of those NWCG certifications, they're really good. Like a burn boss that goes through that system is super qualified, has a lot of experience, but those avenues just aren't open to folks who aren't willing to, put in 15 years at a federal agency. So we see this state certification as hopefully being a good pathway for people to get, the learning part through Canva, and then get that practical experience through doing the workbooks and working with other burn bosses, so that we feel more comfortable getting these burns done on private land.
So to build off of your answer just a little bit, and maybe this would be a better question for Brian, I'm not sure. Just looking forward and thinking about these programs and the implementation of them practically, for folks who do go through the training, get certified, how can they link up with other practitioners and landowners to find resources and personnel to plan and implement these burns on private land, or to get the on the ground hands-on experience that they need?
No, that's a great question, Rachel. As you all know, this program right now is in our infancy stages, and we are heavily relying on people with the reciprocity process, as well as the certification by waiver, so we can get those individuals on the ground evaluating task books and putting ink in those task books so other individuals can get certified and kind of grow. And as these people are becoming more and more certified throughout the state as individuals, at that time, I believe it would be appropriate a conversation to even have about the associations, the Prescribed Burn Association, where we could utilize other individuals and resources and equipment. And I do think that's a long-term thing, but right now it's just getting evaluators out there and individuals certified to put more fire on the ground.
Yeah, and if I can just add on to that, there are, like I said, there are like resources and folks out there. It's just kind of finding them and putting it together in the right place. And I think that's what those prescribed burn associations may do. But I think in the near term, we're at the Forest Stewards Guild, we're happy to do what we can to help. And then, I think depending on where you're at, like maybe the county and the volunteer fire departments might have resources for prescribed burns. It just really depends on where you're at and building those relationships. But that's something I've just been working on for several years of trying to figure out who's available where and when. And you can piece it together. Sometimes it's very expensive, but it doesn't have to be. So yeah, I think, if you're interested in that kind of thing, you can reach out to me for help with the resources. No promises, of course, but we'll see what we can do to put something together. And then like Brian said, once this system gets going and rolling, I think it'll be easier to get folks certified, and hopefully then we'll build up and just kind of keep expanding the network.
And I'll go ahead and put a plug in for FAC-NM here as well. We have all of our members and leaders that are listed on our member directory on the website. So no guarantees, but starting with some of those folks, that might be a good way to make connections as well. Alrighty, so I'll give folks just another minute if anybody has any questions. Sam or Brian, if you have any questions for each other, feel free to open it up for that as well. But in the meantime, I really wanted to thank both of you so much for taking the time out of your day, for coming on and giving this presentation. And thanks to everybody who logged on online today to come and learn a little more about the Certified Burn Program and about All Hands on Lands.
I did want to mention, I saw in the chat someone asking about TREX. And TREX is like basically a formal version of a collaborative burn. So we don't have any TREXs that the Guild is involved in planning right now, but we do have these collaborative burn opportunities, which are sort of like a local TREX. So if you're interested in getting on a prescribed burn, get in touch with me and we can see what the opportunities are. And we may be planning some TREXs in the next year or two. So we'll see how that goes. But there is sort of the mini version of TREX with these collaborative burns going on.
And just for folks who are not aware, TREX just stands for Training Exchange. And I posted a link in the chat if anybody is interested in going to the Fire Network's website. There's a list of events and sort of those more formal learning opportunities. And like Sam said, we have kind of informal in-house opportunities here in New Mexico as well. Alrighty, so we'll go ahead and wrap it up. If anybody is interested in reaching out to Sam or Brian, their contact information is in the chat. Feel free to shoot any questions you have, or if you need some resources, reach out to them. Again, thank you so much for being on today, and I look forward to connecting with everyone on the next FAC-NM webinar.